He crashed and I braked and I caught my foot. I've ripped my nail off.
Are you okay?
Ah, I've lost my nail.
This is where I did my
shin
here.
Ah, my shoe. Ah, you all right? You came off bad.
Are you okay?
Ah, I've lost my nail.
Fuck. That's it, space just fix the shop. That's me about it.
Oh, he rolled over, he's gone, and I've braked and I've just put my foot under the pedal trying. No, I didn't crash, I kept it on, but I've lost my nail.
Oh no. Bruce, are you alright?
Sorry, buddy.
No, it's not your fault, man. I didn't want to crash into you.
Have you noticed whoever's in front of James crashes?
Good afternoon YouTube and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video we talk about my recent incident in degloving my big toe mountain biking. Certainly not one of my proudest moments, but I'll go through the details now and give you an insight into why I missed 2 track days as a result of it. So by no means am I a professional mountain biker. I do enjoy a bit. We've got Swinley Forest near us, which is in Bracknell, nice little trails. I've done a bit in the Lake District. It's definitely one of those things that I'm no means a pro at, but I do really enjoy going for a good burn and I get some cardio in. So not long ago, I bought a full suspension bike and I thought, well, you know what? It's something I've always wanted. I used to ride a hardtail and I want to have a shot at Bike Park Wales. Now, for those that don't know, Bike Park Wales is regarded in the UK as probably one of the biggest mountain bike areas where you can get a van up and just go cycling down the trails all day. So it sounded absolutely perfect for me to go and try out the new Specialized Stunt Jumper alloy. So I went to my brother's on the Friday night, got there, nice drive to Swindon where he lives, had a couple of beers at a local pub, nothing too heavy, obviously don't want to be hanging when on a bike the next day. And it was a really nice evening and we decided, you know what, we'll set off early doors, go and have a look, suss it out and see what it's all about. So the journey from him is like an hour and a half, 2 hours if that, and it's a nice run just down the M4, over the bridge and into wonderful Wales. So it's certainly an odd place when you arrive there. You sort of come off of a roundabout, there's a small little trail that runs up and you're sort of greeted by a car park and it just see bikes everywhere. Couldn't see a sort of guest area or greeted by a sort of central area, which we later found out was just a small cycle and walk up anyway. But really pretty place. I did take the drone off to try and get some aerial shots, but to be honest with you, I took it up in the air and I didn't really see anything other than a lot of trees and then eventually the main hub area. Now the food there probably wasn't the best move for us to have a full belly on a mountain bike session, but we thought, you know what, we're here, we've got a bit of time, let's have some lunch. And I must say the restaurant's really nice. They've got a good shop there, so if you need any sort of equipment, bike spares, in that main hub area, they've also got a lovely bit where you can pump your tyres up, clean the bike, and there's also a nice picnic area you can sit and watch other people having a go on the pump trail. So far, everything was looking really good for the day. So we started by doing the green trail, which if you're not familiar, it's quite an easy route really. It goes green, blue, red, black, and then just sort of off marks. A bit like skiing, snowboarding that I've done really. And what I will say is Swinley Forest where I am grades very differently to Bike Park Wales. So a blue in Swinley Forest is probably more like a green at Bike Park Wales. And I'd say I'm comfortable on reds at Swinley, so I should have been fine for most of the stuff there. But like I say, as we go on to the video in a minute, not so much. So we did a few of the pump tracks down the bottom and then we went up to do the full green. Now we ended up walking up the first time because our pass wasn't until the afternoon. And if you're going to Bike Park Wales, I strongly suggest doing the pickup where it takes you up in the van because it is long to get up there. But me and my brother did it, struggled through in the heat, had to go down the Kermit run, which is the green run. Really just nice, fast flowing run. Like if you're not experienced, you'll enjoy it. But if you are, there's still good pace through it. It's got some good descent. And like I say, I can't go into all the technical details because I'm by no means a professional anyway.
I would say it's probably better you go first, just because.
I've got kids.
No, because you're probably less likely to slip out than me.
Famous
Which
last
means
word.
I don't want to.
Oh, me pick you up, sweet. Well, if you want to go faster and overtake, just give me a shout and I'll move.
I am not going to be asking you that faster. I can promise you that.
That's the real reason.
Oh, damn it, I better.
So what I'll do is the normal Instagram thing. I'll get a picture up at the black and then I'll video down the blue and fast forward it.
Do some colour correction.
Yeah.
Things black.
But we had a lovely time on that trail. Some friends arrived and then we decided in the afternoon that with the lift up pass in the van, we would start tackling some blues, which should have just been pretty straightforward before trying to get onto some of the reds.
Guys, is that recording or do I need?
Yes.
Alright.
Right, who's in front? Because I've got no fucking idea.
None of us have. Whoa! You alright? I got it on camera.
Oh, I just missed my nut by half.
You alright?
Yeah, I don't know about the faults, but yeah. Wow, you alright?
Do you hear a tree?
Ben, it's all on camera.
Both ways. Wow.
You just ran the bank too wide. I think you just too much speed through it.
Oh, my nut.
You were like committed through the first bit and then you just like tailed up the side and I think you fixated on the tree.
Back okay.
Right, all to live.
Me bra spits.
I'd come off the trap if I was you lot. I am.
Okay, go for it.
Let's-
Go.
Are we ready? You alright, David?
I'm ready. Let's
You
go.
leaving me behind?
No, we're saying are you ready?
We'd never do that.
What?
So after doing a few runs, I guess I got overconfident, started really getting sucked into it. The bike felt absolutely wonderful. I thought, it's time to start pushing. And we stopped at one of these runs at the bottom. And I was like, man, I have left the pack I'm with behind. Like, am I going to start injuring myself if I keep pushing and pushing and pushing? Like I say, we weren't doing like monstrous stuff. It was just a blue run. So when we regrouped at the bottom, I said to our friend Bruce, I said, look, you go in front, that way you can set the pace and I can take things a little bit easier. That, unfortunately, was where things started to decline very quickly for the day.
You can.
We'll just follow it down.
You can get to the main road and come back up if you want me to cycle, or just keep on going.
No, we keep going. I go in the van
I'm happy
everywhere.
not to cycle back up.
I pay for the pass, we take the pass. Right.
For the Welsh chick to touch my womble.
Do you want to take the lead, Ben? I'll get some footage of you.
No, I'm not going to be anywhere near far.
Bruce,
No,
did
you're
you
actually
Bruce,
quick.
did you want to have a go up front or?
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going second. I don't want to slow you boys down. I'm pooling.
I'm sorry, I'll slow you guys down a bit.
Now, unfortunately, my helmet camera set it on when we set off in the morning. I hadn't reviewed it throughout the day and was actually pointing a little bit too low. So you missed what happened in front, unfortunately. So The situation, going down this blue run, I think it was, I can't remember, something Terry's Belly blue run, so nothing stupidly aggressive. Nice little run through, following Bruce at a good pace. Unfortunately, Bruce comes off of a small jump, completely stacks it. Now, my own fault, I'm probably 2 or 3 bike lengths behind him. I go up onto the front wheel, and at that point, I'm like, I'm going over the handlebars, and I'm going to lay with him in the gravel in about 2 seconds. But much to my surprise, rolled onto the endo, came back down, but what I hadn't realised is as the bike had come back down, my feet had shifted off the pedals. And like I say, it's difficult to see this in the camera, but essentially my toe rolled off the front of the pedal and the pedal and the ground ended up taking the top of my big right toe. To say the pain was an understatement. It was unbearable at the time. And it's shock initially, because as I stopped, I was like, right, I haven't crashed. I've obviously done something to my foot. I looked down, saw the hole in my trainer, mistake number 1, not wearing the right footwear. And I was like, okay, I can see that there's no nail there. This is pretty painful.
David, you might want to move over to where Bruce is or over here, just in case someone comes down. Do you want to sit, have a seat, James, over here or something?
There's lost a bit of grip there.
What, just there?
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's painful. Nail's gone.
Oh, jeez. I don't even want to look at it. Oh, James, look that way.
Slow down, slow down.
I'm done. This is like, now the pain's starting to kick in. This is a lot.
That's a big old hit.
Look at that, it's pulling back on the...
Yeah, he lost it over the bump and I braked up to try and stop it and I endoed, and then as I came, my foot came down in the bump.
Yeah, give me your bike, just take a minute, mate.
Let's just roll down this and get off the trail.
Just get down, yeah, before the pain really starts kicking in.
I'm just going to coast down, boys.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, there's a lot of blood in the foot.
See if we can get you a drink somewhere.
So after a few minutes of realising that we are in a run, there's not really a lot I can do. I can still put weight on it. I might as well cycle down the rest of the route and get back to the first aid centre. At this point I thought, I've just taken the nail off, I've made a bit of a mess. It was really throbbing at this point, and it wasn't until we set off and started cycling down the run that I started to feel quite sick, a little bit nauseous. I don't know whether it was like adrenaline kicking in, but at that point I knew something was pretty bad because my whole foot, like up to the top of my foot, my toe, it wasn't in a good way, and I could see the blood in the end of the trainer, and it was like squelching as I was putting weight on it. So I was trying to ride on the hill going down this blue run. I don't really remember a lot of that blue run, but I did make it to the first aid centre, and that's where the team assessed the initial damage.
The nail is in there somewhere. Let's not take that off yet.
So I arrived at the first aid centre, which if you haven't been to Bike Park Wales and experienced it, they are really good there. The team was spot on. I actually sat outside in the waiting area because there were 3 people in front of me that were also injured as a result of Bike Park Wales. So you definitely, I would say, need to be wary that if you're not wearing the right gear like I am, I guess with anything, there's always a good risk you're going to hurt yourself. I wouldn't go out on a motorbike without the proper boots and stuff. Why I thought this was going to be safe on a push bike, God only knows. But anyway, went into the first aid room, young lady there, also completely covered in bruises. She worked there, had come off and done herself some injury as well earlier in the week. But thankfully she was recovering well. And she said to me, look, do you want me to cut the sock and the trainer off? I said, you know what, it hurts so much at this point. I'll just take it off quickly before it starts setting and scabbing and bonding to my foot and making it worse. And that, once I pulled the sock off, was where I got my first look at the toe. Now the nurse did say to me she was surprised that I was going to film this, and I said to her, look, ultimately I've made a right mess of myself. I'm going to have to give a good reason for why I'm going to be missing some track days and not going back to work. And I thought, well, you can't deny the facts when you see a video like that. At that point it was sort of adrenaline running. It didn't hurt too much, it was just sore. So I thought, do you know what, let's just get it cleaned up and get back home. And that's when she said, unfortunately, it looks like you've lifted the top of the toe off because I can see the bone in the toe. This isn't going to be something I'm going to be able to sort out. You are have to go to A&E and get it stitched up. I thought, brilliant. I'm in Wales. I live over by Heathrow Airport, which is just outside of London. So do I go to a hospital in Wales and then have to try and get someone to pick me up? Or do I get my brother to drop me all the way back to London? And then I can obviously be near home once I come out at A&E. So thankfully, big thanks to my brother, got me back home. And like I say, went straight to A&E. And that's where the events unfolded. What I thought would be coming to an end seemed to get much worse. So my brother dropped me off at A&E. I called my partner and said, look, there's no point in you coming down. It looks like it's quite a big wait here. I'm a grown man. I can sit here and cry by myself. It'll be absolutely fine. They've got vending machines with plenty of sweets. I should be okay. And then when I signed up to see the receptionist, they said, look, out of 9 doctors that should have been on today, 6 are off with COVID. So I was like, okay, what's going to be the wait time? They said anywhere from 7 to 10 hours sat there. So sat in the waiting room. Obviously, I had a bandage on from Bike Park Wales. It hadn't been cleaned out properly. I was covered in dust and grime. I looked a right state. I've been sweating all day. It probably was the 3rd hottest day of the year. But sat there waiting. A few hours went by, no real change. Spoke to the doctor and they said, or receptionist even, sorry, and they said, look, you're going to need to have your tetanus shot, have some antibiotics because there's a good chance you're going to have some gravel and stuff in there and it's going to need to be seen to. So I had a little nod off in reception, obviously being very cautious not to touch the toe on anything. And then finally I was seen by the doctor at about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. It might have even been later now. It was all a bit of a blur being in there. Phone battery was dying as well. It's just not turning out to be a good day. So ultimately, doctor put 4 needles in my toe, numbed it off, and then I was laying there at this point. I was really tired and I could see the scissors coming out and I couldn't look at the toe at this point. I was like, all right, this isn't going to be good. I said, are you cutting off the old bandage? You went, that's all the old skin that sort of died and wrapped around it. I was like, oh God, this is going to look an absolute mess. And my days of being a foot model are going to be completely long gone. But fortunately, I shouldn't be suffering with any sort of ingrown toenail on that one anytime soon. So there was a silver lining. And the doctor said to me, look, you're going to have to come back for surgery. It's not in a good way. There's only so much I can do when I've got half hour, 40 minutes to sort of clean it up as best as I can. We're going to have to put you under and put you in for an operation and see if we can get it looking better. And at that point you think, all right, this is pretty serious now. If I'm going to be going under for an hour or two, it's no longer just go home and wait for it to heal. And what I will say is when I got out of A&E, probably about 40 minutes later, as the needles that I'd been numbed off with started to wear off, only way to describe it would just be like kicking a door frame for half an hour. It was absolute throbbing. I couldn't touch it, couldn't do anything. And eventually managed to fall asleep. And the following day was where I was advised on the phone, you're coming back in for surgery. So 2 days later, back into hospital with my huge bandage on. It was time to go in for surgery. And what I will say is the NHS were absolutely fantastic. Everyone there, it was coming up to the hottest day of the year. The aircon wasn't great in the wards, but they were just soldiered on all day, making sure I was comfortable, had plenty of food and water. I really couldn't fault them. And then when it was time to go in for surgery, again, absolutely brilliant. The only alarming thing was when I was laying on the bed, the doctor came down, put a marker pen on with an arrow and put big toe. I said to him, well, you're a doctor, why have you put big toe on there? He goes, you wouldn't believe it, but stuff does go wrong in theatre where wrong things get removed or repaired. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, I've got to go in for surgery. Everyone's been fantastic. Stripped down, got into the gown, and then obviously it was straight in for surgery and put the gas on my face, injected me, and before I knew it, I was blackout. I think in the end, the operation took about 2 or 3 hours in the end, like I say, which I was surprised about, just for a toe. I didn't think it'd take that long, but what they did advise is that where I'd degloved it and pulled it back, I'd put a lot of gravel in there. They didn't want to risk any infection. They had to sort of do some work stitching it back up. So at this point, I'm like, I'm never going to have a good looking toe, and it's certainly going to be one of those things when you're around the pool that kids are like, mummy, what's up with his foot? But do you know what, like, as long as it still works, and I didn't realise until they told me this, that you use your big toe for quite a lot of balance. So I was like, oh God, fingers crossed, everything works as normal. And it was one of those, I remember coming around from surgery, opening my eyes, moving my fingers and being like, yeah, everything seems to be in good order, nothing feels odd. And the nurse came up to me and he said, you actually came around about 15 minutes ago. I said, oh, I first I remember even coming around, he said, yeah, the first thing he said is, I could really do with a cold beer. So it's definitely something I would say. Certainly, like I say, if I've been deprived of any sort of eating and drinking since the day before. But honestly, they were absolutely fantastic. I cannot fault the NHS at all for the service they provided on me. So I'll overlay now a little toe lapse, as I've called it, time lapse, toe lapse, throw on words there, of how the toe was when I came out of surgery and then how it's healing now. Now they said to me, because of the way I ripped it off the nail bed, filled it with gravel, there was a good chance I was never going to have a nail on there again, which I accepted. But pleased to report, a few months later, I do have half a toenail, which is quite cool. So I'm not saying it's looking great, and I've not got great feet anyway. I'm not a foot fetish person, but fingers crossed, it's all going to come back as normal, and it looks like it's in a really good way at the moment. So pleased to report, it doesn't look like I've done any real lasting damage to it. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, because of the state of my foot, when I asked the doctor when I come round, I said, please tell me in a week's time I'll be able to put a motorbike boot on to go and do this Pirelli track day at Donington GP circuit. And he said, doing that could risk infection with the sweat in the boot. He said, I'll be impressed if you can even put a motorcycle boot on with how swollen the toe is and how sore and tender it's going to be. So absolutely gutted about that one more than anything, because Donington GP was a track I wanted to do for a long time, but understandably I also didn't want to risk losing my toe. So I thought, you know what, we'll have to write that one off. And then I thought, maybe if I can get a trainer on, I can go and do the Clio Sport Saturday, the track day down at Blighton Park. Another one for years I haven't done, and always said I'd do it. I booked the tickets, I booked the camping, and it was like, you just can't be getting that hot, sweaty and infected, because if it does and you lose the toe, you're going to have big problems. And we've spent hours trying to repair that. So ultimately it was fractured, so I couldn't put weight on it for about 4 weeks anyway. Really tender to put any weight on it. So yeah, there's the story. Unfortunately, I thought I'd just bring you guys up to speed, a little video on what happened. And obviously now, as you can see, all the gear, no idea. I've gone with a full face helmet, and not because I'm doing big jumps or anything stupid, but a friend of ours went over to Swindley earlier this year I think it was, ended up going over the bars, smashed her face into the ground, split half a tooth off. And I thought, do you know what? The NHS rebuilt me for free. If I've got to spend thousands on teeth, not going to happen. So I thought, well, at least with a good helmet, that should hopefully stop that. Now, the only problem is now I've got a proper bike, proper helmet. People are looking at me like I should be doing big jumps on the bike and tricks, which obviously not the case. So I'm more of the pacemaker on the trails now. And I've also bought some Adidas 510 mountain bike shoes. I'd actually wish I'd done this a lot sooner, because I didn't realise how good the grip on the bottom is with the pedals, and reinforced toe box. So it does make me feel a bit funny now when I think about how close my toes can get to the ground, especially with what's happened. So yeah, hopefully those now will stop any future incidents occurring. But yeah, a little insight into what happened. Maybe a little bit boring for some of you, maybe interesting, maybe find out why I went a little bit quiet a few months back and was really pushing 2 videos a week, and then it didn't happen, unfortunately. Like I said, I know a few of you wanted to see me at Clio Sport Saturday, and I was looking forward to going, but it just wasn't happening. So fingers crossed next year. But like I say, an insight into the event. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Right. I got it on camera.